you got to own it. You got to take control of your own future. And I think you're going to win no matter who's in the White House, whether it's your candidate or not. You got to have that winning attitude.
Welcome to the Kingspiration Podcast. This is the place where you'll learn how to get unstuck and gain momentum in your life and business. Each week, we tackle the real aspects of entrepreneurship, personal development, relationships, and fitness. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures, sharing wisdom and experiences to propel you forward. Welcome to Kingspiration. Let's start the conversation.
So Justin, in South Africa, I'm always curious your guys' perception on the U.S. And right now we are a few days away from a very, very major election. So by the time people are listening to this episode, we will have been past the election. But what are you guys seeing on your end? And I'm curious about that. And you mentioned something about price sensitivity, which we've talked about on the past couple of episodes, and how maybe that relates to the election. So can you kind of bring me up to speed? Because I think you just read an article about price sensitivity and how it relates.
Yeah.
What did that say?
So, well, as far as the election is concerned, we see what we allow ourselves to see. So I hide myself from a lot of it because it is I'm going to use the word interesting, what is going on in the US at the moment. And from what I understand, it's very heated, it's very tightly contested, but each party is basically stating that the country is going to fall apart if the other party wins. That's kind of the narrative. And it's very divisive, it's sad to see. It is sad to see something and the narrative become so divisive. And I listened to an interview with Donald Trump a few weeks ago.
Was it the Joe Rogan interview?
It wasn't the Joe Rogan interview. It was an interview with
Lex Friedman? No.
Lex Friedman.
Oh, he was on it?
Nailed it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lex Friedman was excellent. He really pushed him. But what I was disappointed, and I'm neither pro nor against, I'm very neutral in this whole thing, but what was disappointing is that when Trump was pressed, it always became, how could you knock the opposition in some way rather than be pro what you wanting to do to move things forward. So that's one thing that I struggle with, and I've seen that to a degree from both camps. So again, we can hide ourselves in South Africa around what we do and we don't want to see it, but that's the majority of the narrative and what is being seen. The article that I read, which was really interesting, and we saw it earlier this year when we had our elections, was just how people apply the wait and see attitude to investing, to spending money, to making purchases when leading up to a tightly fought or tightly contested election. We had a very tightly contested election as well, and the country did feel like we were on a bit of a knife edge. And it was a major election. There's been significant change since then, and there's still a lot of water to flow under the bridge to see where the country goes. But it just means people do tighten up a little. And I was wondering, off the back of the conversation that we have had around price sensitivity, whether you've noticed in these last few weeks or months, whether that's be even more so now considering the election and what people's perception and idea of what could potentially happen, or that the country could fall apart. Or are you noticing anything in that regard, just with people tightening their wallets?
Yeah, I feel like even though the country is completely divided on the election, everybody, I say everybody loosely, but the sentiment that the economy is not great is consistent. I think we all feel like this economy is not great and it needs to improve. Now, where we differ on is where people are pointing the finger at whose fault that is, right? And so to me, that's neither here nor there, because I don't want to get into messy politics, but a bad economy, at least from my perception, is largely driven by consumer sentiment. It's really about how we feel. And then if we're scared to spend money, then of course that's going to impact the economy. And then it perpetuates, because now the economy, there's less money floating out there in circulation. So then other people get scared, and it just kind of snowballs into, what do they call it? A self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone's scared of a recession, I'm scared, so I'm going to hold on to my cash. Well, now you're kind of causing the recession because you're not pumping cash into the economy. So it's an interesting, I think it's just a psychological play that once the election is over, no matter which side wins, half of the people in the U.S. will feel better and start and let go of their cash and then actually start spending, and then the economy will improve. And then we'll decide again who we want to give that credit to in the White House, because ultimately there's so many other factors. Like, the president really does not determine what goes into your wallet or your pocketbook at the end of the day. It's not just one person. We have Congress, we have a whole system, we have laws, there's state laws. So, but people just attribute all of this credit or blame to who was in the White House. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Go back and learn about government. People, like, it's just not, we put so much weight on the presidency. So that's my opinion. And I've noticed in my own business, recently, we've been busier than ever, like just within the past month. And I'm recording this in October. So our October was extremely busy, people paying more for rush orders. So my thought is, well, people spend money on what they want to spend money on. And then when they don't want to spend money, they can blame it on external factors.
That's a good way to look at it. And I think people also fall into the trap of, if you are told to be scared, then you are scared.
Yeah.
It's following the masses. What is the narrative? But I get it in a very divisive, currently the very divisive state and stage. It probably is nerve-wracking for a lot of people to be investing too heavily. It was quite interesting that in the article that I read, it specifically mentioned CFOs tightening the belt, the belts and not investing and not laying out capital in their businesses as well. So, and that might be very short term. I think that might have something to do with the interest rates currently as well. But I believe there's a rate cut potentially coming in the US. So that will probably change things. So rate cut and the elections, whichever way they go, with that done and dusted, you'll probably see an increase in spend thereafter again, and people allowing money to flow more freely.
Yeah. I think it'll come. And, my hope, I'm not one who gets caught up in politics, because largely I have an attitude of just kind of self-sufficiency. Like, my thought process is, no matter who wins at the White House, whether it's the person I voted for or not, if things start going a different direction in this country, like, I can move. We talked about this on other episodes. Yeah. Like, I have options. I can move. And like, I just want more and more people to take ownership and control of their own destiny, and not be so dependent on who's in the White House or, all these external factors. You got to own it. You got to take control of your own future. And I think you're going to win no matter who's in the White House, whether it's your candidate or not. You got to have that winning attitude.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Kingspiration. We hope this conversation sparked insights to ignite action in your life and business.
We're on this journey together, sharing our challenges and successes to help all of us take the next step towards building momentum and ultimately reaching our goals.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit, and leave us a 5-star review.
And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly conversations. Until next time, keep rolling, keep growing, and keep being inspired.